Hello, everyone. Welcome to Alibaba.com Transformer Talks and a very happy Lunar New Year to all those celebrating. My name is Erica Chan. I am calling you from Brooklyn, New York. And also joining me today is a very special guest and fellow Brooklynite, Jaime-Jin Lewis, who's an educator, an activist, and a through and through transformer, founder of Wiggle Room, joining us today. Hi, Jaime-Jin. How are you?
Good, good. Hi, Erica. And clearly I got your memo about wearing the black on black outfit today.
Woohoo! So Jaime-Jin, Wiggle Room, super fascinating organization. Can you please tell us a little bit more about what it is, how it works, and then also maybe sort of how you got to founding this app and this organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So just all of that very briefly. So my name is Jaime-Jin. I'm based here out of New York City, out of Brooklyn with Erica. Wiggle Room, we are building for a more durable and dynamic childcare system. We are focused on the most important and critical modality of childcare, which is called family childcare. These are largely a women-run businesses that run these childcare businesses out of their home for between 6 and 16 children. They are the largest modality of care for New Yorkers under the age of 3, for children of color, children whose parents receive a low income, and children whose parents work non-traditional hours. So such an important, critical industry in our city, and we're helping them build more profitable businesses, and offer more dynamic childcare to the families, these critical families that they serve in their communities.
That's amazing. And what led you to doing this? What did you do before, and when did you start Wiggle Room?
Yeah, so, Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook in a dorm room and Jeff Bezos was in his garage. And, it's very telling. I was at a dining room table, and a kitchen table, that's where Wiggle Room was started. I have been working on Wiggle Room for almost 3 years at this point, which is pretty wild. But that's why I'm excited to be here and share my entrepreneurial journey, because I think we hear all these big fancy stories and it seems like a simple trajectory, and it's just iteration, pandemic, iteration. And so for 3 years, I have been working on this idea in this space, but it has taken different shapes. So really it was first conceived of out of a fellowship I was a part of at the Blue Ridge Labs, where we were really looking at what working families, working parents who receive a low income, their biggest challenges in their day-to-day lives, their week-to-week lives, and really looking to build durable innovations to support this, this community. And so the first idea was really looking at how often childcare needs came up that just weren't being met by the existing system. So we started organizing pods and childcare swaps, which was, what was already happening, but we were building cool tools to help parents do that in the moment of crisis. They were magical. I would say the magic was not the technology. The magic was actually reminding parents that it's okay to ask for help, that it's not their fault, that they're in these precarious situations, and that sometimes, they have to take on an extra shift, or life happens and they're not a failure as a parent, and it's okay to ask for help. And in fact, they have a community of support around them. So we were working on that. We were building out some cool technical tools around that. And then the pandemic happened. So we ended up, I believe you're a parent yourself. I don't know what was going through your mind on March 12th, I want to say 2020, but probably something similar was going through all of the heads of all of our users. And so I called them up, and we ended up putting a lot of our product development on hold and standing up a hotline in New York City. And it was a very, entrepreneurial startup experience there too. I was just collecting all this information about the regional enrichment centers, which is what New York City called their free childcare centers during the beginning parts of the pandemic, and understanding how it affected different vouchers or subsidies that a parent might have, where they were located, who was eligible. And these things were also, if you remember, changing almost day to day. Originally, food delivery workers weren't included as essential workers at the beginning of the pandemic. So just really, it was a very evolving, process, and it became clear that we could really be a one-stop shop for families who were essential workers and looking to navigate childcare at that time. It was still fulfilling our mission. We were still using some cool technology to do this. And so we ran that until the schools, the fall of 2021, schools were thinking about reopening, and really, in many ways, there were some more stable options, but we didn't feel like we had the information we could just share to a parent with integrity. It was often just like, who's your principal, or who's your childcare provider? It kind of depends. So we sunsetted the hotline, but really rolled all of those learnings about really how family childcare shows up for families, the types of new childcare arrangements that families in New York City need, and really just started looking at that and looking for how we can start mixing and matching and bringing, supporting the supply of childcare while also enabling and expanding access to flexible childcare for more families, and really just trying to do it in a way that is stabilizing on both sides of the equation.
That's amazing. And I think if anything, right, the last 2 years, the pandemic has really shown us what is truly essential. And I think there are few things more essential than childcare, both on the parent and caregiver side. Speaking from personal experience, but also on the children's side, right? Like there's nothing more important than good care for those in their early childhood. JaimeJin, you were one of the 100 most influential people in care. Congratulations for that. And can you maybe what does that actually mean? And maybe can you help us better understand, when we talk about care, what does that mean?
Absolutely. This is what I love to do. So the Care 100 was actually a program that was created by an organization called the Holding Company. I think they're based on the West Coast, but they wanted to really elevate innovators and entrepreneurs who are focused in the care sector. And so defining care broadly and largely, everything from child care, of course, elder care and caring for aging loved ones, caring for family members with disabilities, kind of all of these different pieces, but then also just trying to take a holistic lens and say, okay, how are we also not pitting these different important services and important innovations against each other? So that was really an initiative to bring a bunch of us together who are working in overlapping and distinct spaces to think collectively about what a connected care system could look like in the country. And I'm so honored to be a part of that list, and you should definitely go check it out. There's so many brilliant folks on there. And it really speaks to how I think of care and how why I love doing this. And care is this really tricky and complex thing. Again, I'm sure as a parent, on one hand, it is it's skilled labor, right? So we know that, especially in the field where I work, early childhood educators can be the first person. They can, teach your child how to take a bottle, how to potty train your child, how to eat their first foods. They're just it's skill. It's literally, it's physical, mental, intellectual, skill and labor that goes into it. And these jobs are jobs, and they deserve to be good jobs. And this industry deserves dignity and respect. And on the other side, all of those little things that I was just saying, we know that it's so much more than that, right? That when a child feels safe and nurtured and loved in these early years, that has, some research is showing a 16 times ROI to society for every dollar that's spent on investing in early care and in early childhood development. And, we know that, so I also want to just shout out, I believe my mother is streaming in here, Miss Donna. She was an early childhood educator for 30 years. And so much of why I do this work is because of her work, her legacy, and her impact, the impact that I saw growing up and to this day in her community. And just the way that, she taught children who are 3 years old, but they would come in, maybe 2.5, 2 3/4. And it might be their first classroom experience or setting or social setting. And, they wouldn't know how to share. They wouldn't know how to wait their turn. They'd be afraid to leave, mom or dad or parent or auntie. And then by the end of, a year with her, even a few months, you would see them, excited to come to school. They would be they wouldn't understand how to, you wash your hands before you eat. This is how I share my toy. This is how I wait in line for the water fountain. And all of these lessons, are just have a cascading effect and stay with people and really build a stronger society over time. So that's why I love working in care, because it is a true economy. We need to think of it in that way. And it's one of the most meaningful and impactful economies we can work within.
Amazing. And I'm thankful that there are entrepreneurs like you working on it with other entrepreneurs, no less. And so, JaimeJin, in addition to being on the Care 100 list, you were also a 2021 recipient of the David Prize. And to those watching, the David Prize is an annual prize that is given out to 5 New Yorkers every year. It's a $200,000 cash prize for these New Yorkers who are making transformational impact on the city of New York. And so, JaimeJin, can you tell us a bit more about how you got involved with the David Prize, and then more interestingly, sort of what are you going to do with the prize?
Yes, so it was such a tremendous honor. Honestly, it's still sinking in. It feels unreal.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so I was nominated by, when the pandemic happened and we set up that hotline, I had no idea what was going on. I'm very grateful that I had a mentor who was like, hey, JaimeJin, this is a global pandemic, pause and do what your users, do what your community needs. And if we all survive this thing, then we can figure out what's next for the business. And I was so grateful for that advice, because it enabled me to do something that was so meaningful during that really, really anxiety inducing time. But we ended up setting up the hotline, and then it was largely staffed by volunteers. So I recruited and kind of trained up in this like wonky way, 25 different volunteers who we all were working remotely and trying to provide, full business hour coverage to this hotline and make sure we had all the information. And so a cohort of those volunteers who had worked on the program actually were the ones who nominated me, I believe, for the David Prize. They don't like tell you exactly who, but I kept getting a ping, like, you've been nominated. And so then I started looking at it and was like, I'm not sure what this is, but I think very similar to Miss Fela's response to this question, I was like, well, I haven't, when we started applying, I was like, well, I'm not exactly sure what's next, but this is what I'm doing. This is what I care about. And this is what I like, the change I'm committed to seeing in the world. And just kind of round after round of saying this out loud, it was very empowering. The team was really excited about it. They were really encouraging. And so, I think unlike other, opportunities that you have to apply for or pitch for, that might be more stressful, this one was actually very affirming and actually a little bit healing, if I might say so myself. So, and it was, it was a great process to be a part of, a great community to be a part of. And then, of course, when I won, I just quite literally could not believe it. So it's still sinking in now a few months later.
That's awesome. Congratulations. So talking about care in New York City, why is childcare or just care so needed and so important to New York City right now in this moment in time?
Yeah. So first of all, it's not new. I'm not naive to think that the pandemic created the childcare crisis that we're quite literally seeing with, parents aren't able to go to work because of childcare, both the cost, the availability, and all of the other factors that go into choosing a place for you to leave your child. And this has always been an issue, but I think one thing that the pandemic really exacerbated, which was also pre-existing, was really it stressed out the supply. So in many cases, as essential workers, were thinking about how they were going to get to work and deliver mail and keep the utilities running and keep food stocked on the shelves and help you check out when you go to the grocery store. So many of them have children, and so there was this another workforce, which I think is so often invisibilized, that were supporting their children, that were facing the same issues. It's their business, it's their livelihood, but are they going to have a full classroom? Are they going to accept 6 children? What happens if someone gets sick? Maybe they themselves are immunocompromised or live with someone immunocompromised. And this industry just is, notoriously underfunded and overlooked. And many of these business owners don't enjoy, and the workers in the industry don't enjoy the same benefits as other industries. So paid time off and sick days, and someone who can even like, fill in for you if you need to take a day, let alone a week or 2 weeks or 10 days to quarantine. And so the stress of the pandemic was really high for childcare providers, and we're seeing so many, 2/3 stayed open to watch the children of essential workers in 2020, which was phenomenal. But many did it for reduced wages or not at all, because they knew that the parent was also struggling. And so, this industry has given so much historically to enable our city to run. But during the pandemic, they stepped up in an unprecedented way. And I just think it's time to, invest in this workforce. And then the impact, when I scroll through the headlines, it's such a ripple effect. I'm like, okay, well, this is probably because of care. I know this is because of care. Care touches this as well. And so I think it's, it's a moral obligation, but I also think it's smart business sense as well.
That's amazing. What's next for Wiggle Room?
Yeah, so the DeWalt Prize is great because not only do you get some funding, but they really do try to, connect you to opportunities, get your voice out there, really, give you bespoke resources based on what you need in your organization or your business. And so, for me, I knew I've been doing this largely on my own and bootstrapped. And so I am able to bring on a new team member, which is actually happening as we speak, which is very exciting. And we took all of the different pieces, building our MVP platform last year, again, bootstrapped, put together very like spreadsheets doing this and manual texting to provide childcare solutions. We're going to be able to now scale its work and reach more people with a stronger technological infrastructure. So
that's amazing.
Connecting to so many different opportunities that are required to get something like that off the ground.
That's awesome. And I'm sure that resonates with a lot of our audience here who are entrepreneurs themselves, who are trying to navigate those challenges with growth. And speaking of our audience, Alibaba.com, we are a global community of small business entrepreneurs and owners. And so maybe can you give us some examples of how Wiggle Room works with small businesses and how the small business community can help and contribute?
Absolutely. So first of all, I am chiefly thinking for the parent side is that parents need childcare first and foremost. The most common cases because they're going to work. And so for you'll see this, this is something I wanted to hammer home, even small entrepreneurs, me, myself, think about care and think about care as an asset in terms of building your team, and think about how your small business can be supportive to team members who are also caregivers. So that's and really leverage the skills that come with someone who's an experienced caregiver. Wiggle Room ourselves on the supply side, we are working with in New York City, the 7,042 small business owners who run a childcare business. And so it's been really interesting to go in and really understand, all of the almost magical ways that those businesses run, and try to, and build tools that really support them. And then really bringing those two marketplaces together and understanding that, the parent, goes to work in the community, and the childcare business is also in the community, really thinking about these small local economies and how, making this one interaction work more smoothly and more efficiently and more reliably just really benefits, it has the ripple effect.
It takes a village. It takes the whole city.
Absolutely.
JaimeJin, you're such an impressive entrepreneur. I was wondering if you could share with our audience sort of, you mentioned, right, sort of pivots and things you had to do along the way. What are some of the more memorable lessons you've learned, and what advice do you have to our audience who might be navigating also changes and perhaps setbacks?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is, and I learned this the hard way, there's really no magical solution that's going to fall out of the sky and solve your problems, or solve your, get your business to that breakthrough. It really is a structured system and honestly being brave enough to try a bunch of different things, truly listen for what your users, your customers want and need and like about what you're doing. And then also having the bravery to iterate over and over, to throw away your darlings and just keep doing that over and over again. And that's how you actually get to what people want and what works. I feel like, you know, in the early days, I was like at whiteboards a lot, being like, okay, there's like got to be something magical here I'm missing. I'm like, oh, you actually just have to take your idea to real people. Don't take the, you know, when people don't click on it, when people don't download it, when people don't buy it, you know, that's never, you know, I don't take that as like a no, I take that as like a not yet. So I'm like, okay, what do I have to do to win, you know, win them? What I'm clearly not offering the right value proposition. I'm not communicating it, or I'm just not offering it. And so just having, you know, the diligence to go back and do that every single day, you know, is how we build things.
That is amazing. And yeah, and things are hard to build. So thank you for doing it on behalf of our city and all the children and caregivers. Can you tell us a little bit more about how maybe the audience can get involved, right? We all live in communities. I see that folks are invited to continue the conversation with JaimeJin at wiggleroomnow.com. I love your motto. It's like everyone could use a bit of wiggle room. But what are other ways or other sites we should check out?
Yeah, so I mean, please stay in touch. I love being in community with other entrepreneurs. That's why I was excited to take this conversation today with you, Erica. Go to wiggleroomnow.com, learn more, stay in touch. There's like a little link. I'm going to reiterate to all the other entrepreneurs, invest in care from the beginning for your workers. This is the world we need to build. If you like, I'm, you know, currently fundraising. So like thinking about how to tell investors, like explain my business model and explain how like even compensation packages and team members that I'm bringing on, but like do that work. And I believe your business will be better. And I believe the world will be better. Right. And then the final piece is that, you know, we're in this interesting moment. Like I have not seen childcare in the headlines in the way that it has been, in the ways that it has been over the past year. And it's really reaching this inflection point, which is both, you know, sad because it's reaching this inflection point due to the massive levels of struggle of so many different families. But I think it's also time, and there's appetite for really, really creative systemic change. And so, you know, wherever you are, look up and see, you know, if there are local advocacy efforts involved in like building a more robust childcare system wherever you are. In New York, for example, where I live, this upcoming Wednesday, February 9th, is the day of advocacy for childcare. And so I'll be involved in some of those actions. We're calling for a universal childcare plan, which is super exciting and would be so game changing for so many working families and childcare providers who are supporting them. Learn more about that in New York, you can go to empirestatechildcare.org. I'm not affiliated with them. Yep, but they are, you know, they are leading a lot of those actions, and you can even just read more and educate yourself about, you know, what are the solutions out there that people are putting on the table to address this care holistically and from a policy level.
That is amazing. JaimeJin, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today and for introducing us to Wiggle Room and all the work that you do. To everyone, Happy New Year again, and let's all invest in care. Thank you, JaimeJin.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.